they brought a video camera to all these things, but I sure am glad they did. Terry, I sent Sandy Patty an email a little while back, and I let her know what we were doing, and she sent me an email to give to you, and she said, "Dear Terry, it's been a few years since our paths have crossed, but I will never forget the thrill of hearing your band so many years ago. It was such an amazing thing to hear Christian music coming from your kids. They did an amazing job playing and marching. As my kids have grown and have become involved in high school activities, show choir instead of band, I realize the commitments that a director must have. You have touched so many lives far beyond the students you have had over the years. I congratulate you on many years of success and wish you many more, whatever these next seasons of life hold for you. Blessings, Sandy." I'll give you this copy. I just appreciate you a lot. And come on up here and talk to us.
I had a lot of names. Big Puffy, Bob Smurf, twice the man I used to be. I was, some of you noticed how young I was, but I was 35 when I went to Brentwood High School, and you all are older than that. So you've been there, and you can forgive me for my indiscretions during those years. I have some things to tell you, but I want to talk about the Sandy Patty thing first. The idea for doing Sandy Patty came from you all, from a number of you all, Anne Marie and a bunch of you. And you introduced me to that music, and I thought, well, that would work. That would be good. And so I did that was the third year was the first time that I arranged the music and wrote the drill for the band. And so I did those Sandy Patty arrangements. And then the second year, we thought we had to do it again. So we started with Shine Down. And then that was published the year after that. And to date, Shine Down has been bought and played by over 3,000 bands. And that just amazes me. Jay Dawson made a lot of money off of that. I didn't, but he did. Also, Upon This Rock, about 800 bands have played that. That was the two that they decided to publish. It's the only things I've ever published in marching band. But before the Sandy Patty thing, I think that's the most interesting part. I was on the roof where I patrolled, and I threw rocks at people when they got out of line. And that was a pretty heavy day. That day we were working hard, and Lynn came around and she said, "Mr. Williams." I said, "What?" She said, "I think you better come down here." I said, "No, we don't have time." She said, "I think you better come down here, it's important." And so at any rate, when I had to walk across the top of the building, which Nelson, a bunch of them showed me how to get up there. And when I got down there, the guy from the Gospel Music Association was there, and he says, "We have somebody here wants to see your band." And I said, "Who?" He said, "Sandy Patty." And I just about dropped my jaw, and then she came walking around the corner, and that was probably the most inspired performance you all ever did, the one you did that day for her when she was standing on that box. I mean, it was very emotional, and it was very good. I not bumped into her. She was singing the national anthem at the BOA contest in Indianapolis about 5 or 6 years ago, and I happened to be up there. And so she had done a dress rehearsal, and I was still in the building, and so I went down and introduced myself and said, "Do you remember the day you came to Brentwood High School?" And she she talked about it and remembered it and talked about what a special day that was. So that was encouraging to me that she still remembers it after all these years, and it looks like she does. We also got an invitation to play at the Georgia Baptist Students, whatever it was, in Macon, Georgia, on our way to Florida. And so we did that, and we played for a bunch of people. But all of that is to say it came out of the students. You know, I took your idea and kind of ran with it, but the students were the ones who wanted to do that. Following the success, Shinedown was the #2 seller. It sold 800 copies the first year. The #2 seller. The only thing that sold more that year was tequila. So, but in the publishing world, all these big publishing companies, when they saw that Shinedown was the #2 seller the previous year, then there was a flood of Sandy Patty songs by other arrangers that came out the following year, and Christian music. So Brentwood High School had an impact. Maybe it couldn't happen these days, but it did then, and it really spread all over the country. And we owe that to students in this group. Well, I want to talk to you about several things. I won't remember to say everything I want to say. There's so much, but I want to tell you that there's a lot of decisions you make in your life that kind of send you down a road this way or that way. And we wouldn't be here tonight if some decisions that I made early on I hadn't made, or other people made about me. And this has been a great day. I have really enjoyed it. I started out playing the baritone horn, and I loved it so much that I thought, what can I do after I get out of school? Because you can't play baritone horn in the symphony. So I learned how to play the trombone a little bit. Then I went to East High School, and my band director was Rufus Long. And Rufus was my role model for how to do things, because he was playing flute in the Nashville Symphony. He was principal flute. He'd come by my house and pick me up and take me to the dress rehearsal so I could listen to the symphony. And he took me to my first recording session I ever went to, and all sorts of things, dance jobs, and you know, he just exposed me to music in so many different ways. And when it came time, you know, in civics class, they told me that I should consider being an electrical engineer. That would have been great. My son, by the way, Seth, y'all remember Seth, he took all those tests and he scored. He wasn't motivated, so his test scores came back and they said that he should be trying to be a tugboat captain. That's true. So to this day, when you see a tugboat. At any rate, I went on to college and did all of that, and I knew that I wasn't going to ever teach below the college level, but there was this little thing called the Vietnam War going on, and you couldn't get a master's degree, so you had to just do what you do, and I did what I did, and got in the National Guard band because I played the trombone, and then I started a little music school, teaching private lessons, and smart as I was at 22 years old, I put it in downtown Nashville where the kids couldn't come get to it, you know. So then I moved out to Green Hills and started teaching in private schools, and before long I was at Franklin Road Academy full time, and they decided that they wanted to be state approved. So that meant people like me who I didn't have a teaching certificate. I had to go back to school to get a teaching certificate. Well, I started doing that. And I had this little 38-piece band, sixth grade through 12th at Franklin Road Academy. This was in 1981. And we were going to go to the state championship. And the state championship, 25% of your score came from the color guard. And we didn't have a color guard. So I knew it was going to be tough. So So one of the students said, there's a girl that goes to church with me, or so I don't know what the connection was, but she says, I know somebody I can get that might can help us. And it was Lynn Cox. So Lynn came over 2 weeks before the state championship, Class A state championship in Tennessee, my little 38-piece band, and found 7 girls willing to learn something. And so what we did, we had them do a little work in the middle. We took them to the back sideline and had them stand. And then we brought them back at the end, just so that we wouldn't lose all 25 points. And at the thing, the guard judge, I remember the tape, she says, well, you've been back there on the back sideline a pretty good while now. She didn't know this was their first performance, at the state championship. Well, the funny thing about it was that they only took 6 bands in the finals, and we made the finals because of Lynn and because of those 7 girls. And we beat out 3 bands that had 100 members in there, and those people got pretty upset. We knew that we wouldn't be in the finals. We had already packed up our bus and everything. We were going to drive over to Murfreesboro, go to the Contest of Champions and watch that, you know? So we had to unload everything, and Lynn had gone over there, didn't know where we were, and that's what was going on. Well, during all this time, you were in the band, weren't you? Steve, at FRA for a while? Yeah. And Steve's dad, Jay, I had played with him in the symphony, and I knew him from working around in Nashville. When Brentwood High School was ready to start up, Mr. Parker talked to Jay a good deal about who he would recommend. And he had remembered me at this place. And so somebody called me and said I should go out for an interview. So I made an appointment, and I went to see Mr. Parker. And Mr. Parker was very busy. He interviewed me in about 2 minutes in his office, and he said, I don't have time to take you down there and show you the band room. Come back some other time, we'll let you do it. And I said, well, do you mind if I go down and look? And he said, that's all right. So I went down, and I was able to look through the door, and it was impressive. It was huge, and it had glass windows, and I had been working in a balcony above an auditorium, you know, for the last several years. So this was just absolutely fantastic. And at any rate, he said, I'll call you back for another interview if we're interested. He never called back. This was in early May. He never called back. And so the day they broke ground on the new band room at Franklin Road Academy, I got a phone call from Mr. Parker. He says, Mr. Williams, we decided to hire you as band director at Brentwood if you're still interested. And I was totally shocked. It was late June or something, and I couldn't start working until July because of the new year. And the backhoe was there digging the foundation for the new band room that I had worked for years to get for Franklin Road Academy. And I had to call the headmaster and say, I'm leaving, I'm going to Brentwood High School. And at any rate, I went out there, and I think it was July 17th. And that first performance we saw tonight, to me, I can't believe it. I don't know how we did it. I really have no idea. We had, I walked into the band room, and there were chairs and there were stands, and that was it. When I talked to them about the job, they said, we think we've got about $40,000 from bond money for you to buy instruments. And when I talked to Mr. Bright, he said, we think we're going to have about $40,000 from the boosters for you, so you ought to be able to get the program started. So I got to work. Well, it turns out it was about maybe $17,000, $18,000 from the boosters and $4,000 from the county. And we bought that first set of timpani with that. And Mr. Andrews provided the marimba that first year. And we got started. Peggy helped organize so much stuff before I got there and after I got there. And we borrowed instruments from Northside. I didn't know how to, I could write a little bit of drill, but I didn't want to write for this band. And so I found stuff off the rack and adapted it. And uniforms, I had a guy that I had been talking to, and I said, we need something fast. And he said, wash and wear. And I said, okay. So Those uniforms cost $80 a piece. And Randy said something about band fee. I don't know if you remember, but it was $40. And a few years ago, somebody was telling me that McGavick's band fee was over $1,000, and that didn't include the spring trip. So that's where things have gone, $2,000 now. I didn't want to do that. I wouldn't do that if I was still a band director. I just don't, that defeats the purpose of it. But ours was $40. And, I want to tell you a couple of things about some of the students that I remember. I remember the first practice when we got together in July. The first note of that Firebird suite was a G on the top of the staff for the trumpets. It was unison. We had 12 trumpets, and I think only 3 could hit that high, So I was pretty discouraged. I had to pick out 3 first trumpets and a few second trumpets, a few third. And the only time I ever did this in my life, I took them one at a time into the future uniform room back there, and I said, play as high as you can. And so they would go, I took the 3 highest and made the first trumpet. That's how we get started. And I think, I'm not sure, I won't swear to it, but I think Dallas and Charles were 2 of the 3 highest. So the next time I saw Wayne Simpson, he said, well, I tell you, I had 32 trumpets last year. Charles was number 31, and Dallas was number 32. Thank you very much. Well, they figured out something because they got it together. The percussion section. Well, I have a number of things to tell you about that. One of the things that's funny, they love to practice. Oh my, they wanted to warm up all day long. They'd rather warm up than perform. And I would get into the band room and they would, like when we were having a morning practice or something, and they'd all be out there just warming up, playing like crazy like that. I said, well, somebody must have let them in. Well, I finally found out what happened. Secondhand, one day a teacher had forgotten her key on the other end of the building, couldn't get in, and she was saying, I don't have my key. And Jonathan Bright says, that's okay, I'll get it. We got a master. She said, come with me. My managers who used my key to go back to the band room to get things out, Don Click, I think, had found out that there was a key-making thing in the janitor's closet. So they took my master in there and made a copy of it and gave me mine back. And then they always had this master. And it would have been all right if he hadn't been so helpful to that teacher that day. I told them earlier today that some of them said something like they would kind of apologize. And I said, you don't have to apologize. So that was taken care of several years ago in San Antonio. I was doing a convention down there and an exhibit with my business now, and Mike McIntosh walked up to me. And Mike said, Mr. Williams, you remember me? I said, well, yeah, Mike, I remember you. He says, I want to apologize to you for being such a jerk in high school. I said, Mike, you don't have to apologize to me. I was a bigger jerk than you were. We just a couple of jerks together, just going through it. I'm real proud of all of you, and some of you, I've kind of followed your music career. Mike, and for those of you that don't know, has turned in, he was quite a snare drummer even after Brentwood. He went on to be what they call the center snare, the main one with the world champion Blue Devils drum and bugle corps. He was, the main one there. He came in second place, I believe, in the snare competition for the whole world there, and then another one he came in first place. And now he teaches. His dad was grooming him to be a chiropractor. He was going to be rich. And Mike decided he wanted to teach percussion. So he teaches up at Carmel, Indiana, teaches one of the finest high school bands in America. He's been on the staff of the very top drum corps in America. And he's just had a tremendous career. And I said, well, why do you do that? And he says, because I love teaching. I'm more than chiropractor. And he said, yeah. He said, this is what I want to do. And so he's still doing that. He also told me that he's got to work with the best bands all over the United States, and he realizes now that we had a pretty good thing going at Brentwood High School. We did. We had a good thing. We had a good time. We had some good people working with us. Two down here in particular. So at any rate, and that Don Click, first year, y'all might remember, he was the bass drummer. The laziest bass drummer I've ever seen. And a guy we haven't mentioned tonight, Robert Salambini, was the percussion instructor the first year. Lynn reminded me of his favorite quote, you ought to shoot all percussionists in the head twice in case the first one doesn't get them. But Robert got Don started playing that marimba that Curry Andrews provided. With 4 mallets, and taught him a Bach piece, and he went to Soul and Ensemble Festival and played this. Well, he just went on to become, Robert lit the fire in Don Click, and Don Click is considered one of the biggest guys in the percussion world to this day. He has taught and played with the best. He's just one of the best out there, and he's one of ours. And then, it goes on and on. Yeah. He breaks a natural mystique. Yes, the Mystique, which were world champions, He did that. I was talking to Cesar today. I remember something about him, and that was the day we were going to practice for parade, and he's out there with that marimba on a case like this out in front of him. And it was about 100 degrees, and we were marching. Cesar never complained, He wasn't from the United States, So he just carried that thing, and he's got dark complexion, but it was white as a sheet. Everything had left, and he was just dying. So I remember telling him to take that thing off, and as far as I know, we never carried another xylophone or anything like that again, ever. I realized at that time that was cruel and inhuman, and nobody does that anymore. Now they put them on the sidelines, so that was good. My favorite Ken Wood story. I'm up on the top, throwing rocks at people, and we're doing the beginning of Shine Down, and Ken started out on the 10-yard line over here, and as you recall, it was all those spokes, and they folded into the center like this. And Ken kept being late coming in there. And finally, Ken yelled at me. He says, if you think you can do it, you come down here. I said, okay. And so I headed across the thing, down the steps, through the rooms, busted out the side, and went over it beside him. And so then whoever it was started it off like this, and in 3 steps he was 10 yards in front of me, and I was running trying to catch up with him. I never said anything to him again. It was one of the hardest things I ever wrote for anybody to do, and he pulled it off, So I thought that was great. Well, I've caught you up on everything. The first game, I did want to mention something that I thought was interesting. We got so many compliments on the flags at the first game that we ever did, on the material, how beautiful it was. those were practice flags that we were using, and everybody thought that that was the real thing, you know. Half of them were blue, half of them were gold, you know. Then we came out with real flags then the next week or two, and they were really surprised at that. One of the saddest times I had was at the MCI contest the first year. The reason, I want to thank all of you who were juniors and seniors and came and helped us start this program, because you were coming from the defending state championship band for the last 2 years. And we didn't do a bad performance that first show, but we didn't make the finals at MCI that year. And there were some tears, and I felt really horrible. Franklin won MCI, I believe, that year, and we couldn't even make the finals of the C class. So I felt pretty bad. I was bound and determined to do what I could to help, you know, for the future. The next year, I don't know how we did at MCI the next year. Yes, I do. I don't know, too. Well, first of all, you remember the Columbia contest where we won the Kmart trophy? Yeah. Well, that was the second year, 10th place, Kmart trophy. And that was kind of an embarrassment to us. And so, the Monday after that contest, I had to go to Jacksonville, Alabama, for a meeting of band directors about that contest that was coming up that we were going to go to. And I called practice off. And Keith or a bunch of y'all decided that you were going to practice anyway. And I don't know, there was a meeting of the minds while I was gone. And I don't know what was said or what happened, and I didn't want to know. But it was good because it was a different band when we came back. So we went to MCI and we finished first place in the B class, which was next to the top class. And the judges there that day said that we were a breath of fresh air. And that was encouraging to me to not make the finals in the C, for us to come in first there. And then we went down to the Jacksonville and won first in the AA class. And there was a band there from Atlanta that won the whole thing, and they started in 1981. And I forget their name, but I got to know the director over the next years. I thought it'll be interesting to see what happens to these two bands over the years, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Well, we went up for a while, then we started going down. His band went on up. They're over 300 still to this day. They've won all kinds of national championships. It's an incredible program. He came to Brentwood to judge a concert band festival one time, and I asked him, I said, you know, I watched your band, and he knew our band, and I said, I'm wondering what the difference was. And he said, how many periods did you have in a day? And I said, 6. He says, we wouldn't have a band where I am if we only had 6 periods. We had 7 periods, and most of my seniors had to skip lunch in order to be in the band. So all I'm saying is that there are factors that go into programs that somehow you have to figure out in order to make it work. But we did okay anyway. And then, of course, sometimes when we won, I didn't get too excited about it because we didn't perform well. I'd rather perform well than win. Well, when we went to Jacksonville the second year, I forget, we were down the line a little bit in there at the end of prelims, and at the finals, I thought it was one of the best performances we had done, so I was satisfied with it. But I knew we weren't going to win because there were such good bands there, including that incredible 300-piece Grissom band from Huntsville, Alabama. No way, right? So they called out third place, and I forget who it was. They called out second place, and I forget who that was. And the first place was all that was left, and they hadn't called out Grissom. And I was just, I was dying. I said, I can't believe it. We didn't even place. And then they called out first place Brentwood High School. And I think that was probably the most fun ever that I had. At least I didn't expect it, and it was just wonderful. We went on to state that year, and we won that by a huge margin. And the same night we were doing the state, there was a contest at Brentwood called Southern Hospitality. And that was where all the other big bands were. And And I thought, well, that's good, but we're winning state championships. This is good. Well, after it's over, all my buddies called me up and said, all the bands that made the finals at Southern Hospitality, all the directors have been invited to Jamaica for a planning meeting. So when we were too big to go back to AA State the next year, I thought, oh boy, we can go to Southern Hospitality. So we went to Southern Hospitality, and as you recall, they decided to mix classes, and they drew us out first. So there we are on the field at 8 a.m., first band. And we did all right, you know. And then Melanie's shoulder, I don't know where it went, but somewhere in the middle of Mark Time Hut, it left. And one side of the band started, the other side of the band didn't, and nobody said anything about it. No, the judges didn't say anything about it. They were just quiet, you know. And then one judge gave us a 199 out of 200 points, you know, with us falling apart. I wonder what we would have done 200 if we hadn't fallen apart, you know. But at any rate, we made the finals. I said, oh, boy, I'm going to Jamaica. And it's the first time any contest around here ever used a computer to do the scores. And the guy doing it, or the young lady doing it, didn't really understand bands. And they had this caption called drum major, and they had this caption called percussion. Well, she saw drum and thought that was drums. So she put all the percussion scores under drum major. And bless her heart, I knew Autumn Cruiser from the time she was a little bitty girl. And she was the drum major at Franklin at that time. And she always came in last place in conducting, because there wasn't an emphasis of the Franklin band. And I remember seeing Autumn when they called out first place drum major Franklin, she went. She was just totally shocked, and she walked up and got that, and then the Franklin percussion section came in last, and then we came in sixth, I think. And then I got a phone call about midnight that night that said the computer had everything all messed up. And actually y'all came in fourth, and Franklin Percussion won, and our color guard won, and all kinds of things like that. And that guy that wore the hat, you know, Wendy's guy that sponsored this thing, he said, I'm not going to be associated with anything as slipshod as this. We're not going to Jamaica this year. That was the end of the contest. There was no planning for the next contest, and there was no trip to Jamaica. There's one thing I have to tell you about the trip rules. Number 24 back there. The trip rules for how to please your band director or something like that when you go on a trip. Number 24 was please don't use the restrooms on the bus because it stinks and all that kind of stuff. And then number 25 was trash bags were provided at the front and the rear of the bus. And my wife caught it. She said, do you really think you want these two, one right after the other? I almost let it out, but I didn't. Well, I'm going to close out my time here. I think I've said all that I need to say, except that it was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade anything for it. The things that I learned from you just meant a lot. When I did teach for 28 years, and when I cleaned out my desk the final time, I had a drawer where I had collected all those cards over the years. And I started reading them, and the interesting thing about it, those cards didn't have a thing to do with winning contests, state championships, anything to do with music. It had to do with relationship. And it really told me how important that is in life. I wish I could go back and be 35 again with the wisdom that I've learned since then. But if y'all could take that little bit of information and apply it in your lives, I know that a lot of you are in positions where you have influence on people, and if you realize not to sweat the little things and to value those relationships as much more important than anything else. I had a great time, and I thank you for it. This has been a great day.
My wife has been worried about this moment for 3 weeks when my mom found this jacket. She said, "You're not going to wear that." But I got to put it on at least once. And I can still button it up. We are, yeah, pictures, all right. The next 18, right? Yeah, I think you're right. We're running out of time. I know. Well, we're supposed to be out of here at 10 o'clock. And we've got a...
Well, pass the plate to Lady Betty, so let you stay home.
Good idea. Lynn said pass the plate. For those of you in the back that didn't hear that. Here's what I'd like to do so we don't run out of time. Because we have... The best part of the video is all the pictures and stuff. And I don't want you to miss that. So we had a performance from 1986 that's on this video. Which, by the way, on the website, after all this is over, we're going to take video from the picnic today, everything that's happened here tonight, all the video you've seen, plus some that we just don't have time to show, and we're going to sell that. Hate to sell it, but then I'll cover the cost of making it. So the 86 show will be on there, and a bunch of other good stuff. But I don't want to run out of time and not be able to show the slideshow, and I don't want to run out of time for Peggy Cunningham, so come on up here. Come on up here. You're not getting out of it.
I'll stay ready.
I've had to communicate through Melanie just to say, make sure your mom gets here for one, and number two, will she say something? And Melanie kept promising that she would. So.